Manchester City and Manchester United fans, it's time to strap in. We are going to tell you which treble is the greatest treble, even though City haven't quite completed theirs yet. But Stephen is here, and I'm sure you fully believe that City are going to complete the treble, right?
I'm about 60% confident.
60?
Oh, I don't think I'm. No, because we've got a derby. We've got a derby in the final, and as a football fan,
I thought you'd be worried about the Champions League. You're worried about the derby.
Yeah, of course I am. I'm worried about the derby much. I'm obviously worried about the Champions League final, but if there's one. Yeah, playing your biggest, your biggest rivals, your local rivals in an FA Cup final. Manchester City will probably reach another Champions League final again in my lifetime. I almost certainly will. We probably won't ever have another derby final in our lifetime because it's the first Manchester derby in like 140 years of the FA Cup. So these things just don't happen very often. And the fact that it's Man United who've got a treble and they're playing to stop us winning a treble, of course playing for themselves too. There's just something about that game where all it needs is a Rashford offside goal again or something like that. Something crazy to happen. And you lose finals sometimes by... Not often, but you don't have to play badly to lose a final. That's the thing, and that's what makes it so terrifying as a fan. Having said that, pure logical hat, City are better than both of those sides. Yeah. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. If we play well, we win both, but in theory.
All right, we've got Stephen's fear out of the way. Arsenal fans, don't worry, we didn't forget you. We do also have the Arsenal Invincibles here, and I'm very happy about this because the football purist in me does believe that Arsenal team, to achieve that, is one of the best achievements ever. 90 points that season, 26 wins, 12 draws, 73 goals scored, 26 conceded. The invincible goal scorers, Thierry Henry, Pires, Ljungberg, Reyes, Bergkamp, own goals sneaking in there, Gilberto Silva. I mean, it's an incredible team. Where does that Arsenal Invincibles team rank in this three if City were to go on to complete this treble?
I don't see the Chelsea 04-05 team. I can see the 14 league goals, but I'm sure that's an oversight from the person with the stats. Arsenal Invincibles is incredible, and the fact that they didn't lose a league game that season, I don't think will ever be matched again, just because there are so many variables. And invariably, when it gets to that point in the season, teams are playing in multiple competitions, and like we saw at City the other day, where they didn't lose against Brighton, but they dropped points against Brighton because they just had their eye on other things.
Yeah,
I think that's an achievement that has to be heralded, and they got given their token golden trophy, so that will be forever remembered. But if City were to go on and win the treble this year, at the back end of a three-peat, I just think this would be the greatest team that we've ever seen. It's a City team that done it in a different way. If you look at a United team that won the treble, 79 points? The league went to the last game of the season. The FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal could have gone another way if Bergkamp scores the penalty. The final against Bayern Munich could have gone another way, a couple of last-minute goals. It was a great team, it was a great moment, and that was the start of their three-peat. But I think this is the culmination of Pep Guardiola's monster, and I think that this City team, if they do win all those trophies, will go down to great team.
It's the context. Like the Arsenal Invincibles is incredible, genuinely incredible. The other competitions is what makes it so treble, though. What makes it so impressive is 3 trophies, not the one. That's not to play down Arsenal's achievements, but City could finish this, probably will finish, maybe, depends on how they play against Brentford, but they'll likely have, if not the same, if not more points on the Arsenal Invincible side, while at the same time, if they do a treble, they beat Manchester United in an FA Cup final. It would be Inter Milan, but also in the same way, spanking Bayern and Real Madrid. That is incredibly impressive and incredibly hard to do. So it's not just the fact that they've got the trophies, it's who they will get him against, and even though I don't think City have been at their sparkling best compared to maybe the previous Guardiola campaigns, I think there's something, even if you take away all the money a City have got, and I know the caveats, but in a purest sense, the management from Guardiola this year, I think it's been remarkable. The way he's reinvented this Manchester City side and made them so pragmatic yet so brilliant, and totally reinvented the system. And I think it's been easily his biggest achievement if he does this. Even though we had a season where we won all the domestic trophies, there's just something about this Manchester City side, from my perspective, it's a pure result of Guardiola. I think it's purely down to Guardiola if we do this, and I think it's hard not to give them credit. If we do treble after 3 Premier Leagues in a row, it's stupid.
We'll circle back to United. I think we're essentially ruling Arsenal out. I think to achieve 3 trophies across 3 competitions, it is absolutely stunning, especially considering the teams that you have to play in the Champions League, the fixture pile-up and all of that, and also the competitiveness of the Premier League. Although I have previously argued that I think this Premier League is generally weaker than it has been, I do still think that this to win the Champions League and the FA Cup in this season, Considering the run actually that City have had in the FA Cup, Chelsea, Arsenal, Bristol City, Burnley, Sheffield United and Manchester United. There's 3 Premier League teams in there. There's the Championship champions and Sheffield United, who are also coming up to the Premier League. Essentially, 5 Premier League teams. It's a really tough run, scoring 17 and conceding 0 in the FA Cup.
I'll probably say the easiest game was Chelsea, no? Like, out of all those teams, the easiest games you had was Chelsea. And now you read out all those teams, that's very, very impressive. And I do want to kind of talk about the era because I think Arsenal clearly, that era when they won in 03-04 was the best era of Premier League football. I think between the years of 03 and maybe 2012 was the best era of Premier League football, culminated by the Aguero moment.
You would feel that way, wouldn't you, with the Chelsea
I'm including the Aguero moment in there as well in the 11-12. But the fact that City are doing it in such a dominant and different fashion as well. Guardiola is known for a certain style of football. This is probably the most physical Guardiola team I've ever seen. This is a City team that are one of the most physical teams in the league, can rough it up and can also play football as well. It's the culmination of his hard work, and if you look at, they've got the best centre midfielder in the world, and in my opinion the best centre midfielder in Premier League history. They've got the best striker in the world as well at the moment. This is the best Guardiola team he's ever had.
Is that potentially where Manchester United fans could possibly argue and say, you know, you have got the best striker in the world, best midfielder, potentially one of the best centre-backs. Manchester United might argue that, well, Manchester United didn't have the best team in the world at the time.
I lived in Manchester at the time, and United fans were telling me they had the best in the world. So it's easy to say that, but are you telling me there isn't a United fan in the world who doesn't think Roy Keane's the best central midfielder? They do. They do feel
sure,
that way.
I mean,
they think Beckham is probably the best right winger and stuff. So it's all very much, we could turn around and say that, but at the same time, they were some of the best players in the world during that treble. They just were, because I don't think you can do what they achieved with a bunch of players who aren't world class.
For sure, but I mean, I would agree that Manchester United fans might be saying that Beckham was the best right midfielder and Keane might be the best midfielder. But you've got a Chelsea and a Liverpool fan, and probably the whole world, who will say Haaland's the best striker, De Bruyne is the best midfielder, Diaz is in the top 3 centre backs. You've got Grealish who's in the top 3 wingers. You've got Rodri who's definitely the best DM. That's 6 players and the best manager. And then the other counter argument, which I don't particularly enjoy, is that City have spent loads of money. And so therefore they should be getting this achievement. Does that take away from the achievement?
I get that. United did as well. I think it's all inflation, how it works. But no, I agree. I think, to be honest, to do what City are going through these days, there's no club's going to do that without spending a lot of money. So it's very much, it's there and it's relevant and it's right. But I don't think we can ever have this conversation without that being a caveat, because I don't think it's possible. You can't beat Real Madrid, Bayern and United and all these other teams in these competitions without having, unfortunately, a very expensive squad. And I think it's just part of the course, and I think that's unfortunate, but it's just it's not as simple as that. You know, you're a Chelsea fan, you know money doesn't equate to success.
100%. And also, I think that with this as well, a lot of these achievements that we're talking about tie into the legacy of the managers, and we can sit here and reflect on how great that treble was, because in the 10 years subsequent to Alex Ferguson leaving Manchester United, they've won diddly squat in terms of the major trophies, in terms of what they wanted to try and win. We will reflect on this Pep Guardiola era way more favourably generally when City aren't winning as consistently. This is normalised. This is not normal what City are doing. It's not going to happen when he goes. Like, Man City were winning titles, but it was intermittent. Guardiola has come into the Premier League and made it Bundesliga-like, made it league unlike. Wait till he leaves, and that's when you can really appreciate him, because City will not be winning at this rate when Guardiola's not there.
As a City fan, the thing that goes back to, he's talking about having the best players in the world and that kind of stuff, is, I mean, no one thought Nathan Ake was one of the best centre-backs. No one thought Akanji was a superstar signing at 40 million, but he played left-back and shut down some of the best wingers in the world in the Champions League, you know. No, everyone could afford Rodri. Of all the big teams, they could do. You know, they could all, afford so many players like Alvarez and so on. You know, we can debate about agent fees, but Haaland, was affordable too. There's so many players like that, and Bernardo Silva at the time, very affordable. And a lot of these players are some of the best in the world, but they weren't already considered that when Man City signed them. Even De Bruyne was greeted as a £60 million flop, and of course he was a better player than some tabloid journalists will have you believe. We know that, but this still is a victory for smart recruitment and players improving, because all these players that are as good as they are now, they weren't as good when they joined. They weren't, and I do believe in Haaland. I think he's a more well-rounded player than when he joined. So I do agree that City are very lucky, but I think those players are as good as they are because they, to an extent, become as good as they are. I don't think it was a guarantee.
I will throw out another counter argument in there with this Champions League run. I think the FA Cup run speaks for itself, essentially 5 Premier League teams, and then the Premier League run speaks for itself. But the Champions League run, with the fact that Real Madrid are second in La Liga and miles behind Barcelona, who are knocked out by Manchester United, and the fact that Bayern Munich are second in Bundesliga and Dortmund are about to win the league for the first time in 11 years, Manchester United run to the final was beating Inter Milan, Juve, Bayern Munich, and beating Barca in the group stages. Manchester United fans are pretty fair to say that, well, hold on a minute, we had an incredible run to this Champions League final and we beat the best teams on the planet at the time. Could you argue that maybe that sides Manchester United's Champions League victory more than Man City's?
I would agree with you generally, but the Real Madrid semi-final really told me something, because we can sit here after Real Madrid lost that game in dramatic fashion and say that Real Madrid aren't as good as they used to be, but they're still Real Madrid.
Liverpool fans know, don't they? You know,
yeah,
look
we've
what they
still
did to
seen them crash it on multiple people, and the fact that Man City dismantled them like that, it was one of the best performances I've ever seen. It told you something, and that was almost their final. You saw it in the reaction from the fans, and obviously they've got to get over the hurdle of Inter Milan, who won't be easy and won't lay over. But I just think this Man City team deserve credit for everything, not just the Champions League run, for the FA Cup run, for the league run, for hunting Arsenal down, and this is one of the best.
There's more than that as well. Like, I mean, in our group stage, we had Dortmund. Dortmund could be the Bundesliga champions. You know, Sevilla could be about to be the Europa League champions, and they were in our group as well. Obviously, Copenhagen sort of making up the numbers in that group, if we're being honest. But Dortmund, Sevilla, you know, Bayern Munich, who were, at the time, were flying. You know, they were one of the favourites, if not the favourite for the Champions League. Real Madrid, I don't really know the positions of all those teams when United played them, but I would say the list is very comparable because they are immensely good teams. And United had some, I remember those games against Juventus or whatever, and they were really good. City blew these teams away, and that is, to me, is what makes it so special. Like, I personally feel the teams are very similar, if not the same, maybe a little bit less, but then if you look at the quality of City's performances, obviously I've got my blue tinted glasses on as a Man City fan, but I went into those games nervous, and looking back, I shouldn't have been, which is crazy, because City were just special.
All right, the panel clearly is favouring City's treble, which I will say again hasn't happened yet. If it happens, if it doesn't, you're going to get back. You're going to be watching this back and laughing at all three of us. Let us know in the comments if you think Manchester United's treble is the greatest achievement, Man City's, or if you do actually back Arsenal's Invincibles.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.